Well, if you want an iconic 80s event to base your movie around, the fall of the Berlin Wall is not a bad one to go with. Continuing on with the action oriented portion of commissions that I got for this year, Atomic Blonde. I had seen this one before. It had been a little while. I remembered a couple things. I remembered that the action scenes were really good. And I also remembered sort of feeling at the end of it like the parts that were good were quite good, but I'm not sure about the movie overall. But I couldn't remember any details as to why I thought that. And so when I fired this up to watch it again, I found myself going, dang, was I just like not appreciating this at the time? Because I'm digging the energy and the feel, and it's well shot. It's a little more male gazy than I remembered it being. I'll grant that. But I'm like, this is going pretty well. And then the big action centerpiece happened. And then the movie kept going for another half an hour after that. And that was such a slog that by the time the movie was actually done, I was going like, I remember now. But we'll come back to that. Anyways, so this stars Charlize Theron, which if you're gonna have a woman leading your action movie, she's a dang good pick. It's got a solid cast. It's her, James McAvoy, John Goodman, Bill Skarsgård is in this. Eddie Marsan, who is one of those guy I love to see kind of actors. Whenever he shows up, I'm like, oh yeah. So it's a solid cast. And the setting, as I said, is fun. Like, well, I was about to mention something. That's issues on the tail end. We'll come back to that. But like the setting's fun. The dichotomy between East and West Berlin, and it feeling in many ways like a real hub of the moment in late 1989, where everything was happening. There was like a center for culture, because you had the folks from the East like desperate for any kind of the culture that was going on the other side of the wall. You had West Berlin that was, a lot of it was kind of reveling in that, the reunification and all that. It's a solid setting. It's a Cold War espionage story. The characters are pretty solid. Charlize Theron is playing kind of the unflappable badass type, but she does kind of show why Gina Carano was not ready for prime time with Haywire, because everything that Carano failed to bring to her character, other than to the action scenes, Theron brings to hers. And on paper, it's effectively the same character in a lot of ways. She's also, stoic, hard to read, not particularly emotional, really good in a fight. But there's just so much more person in Theron's performance that it's not even close. It feels insulting to even compare them. So she's not as showy of the parts. James McAvoy is a lot of fun as this clearly very untrustworthy station head, like British officer in Berlin. He's terrific. And like John Goodman, I'm always happy to see. Toby Jones, that was another one who showed up. So it's a good cast, and a lot of them are interesting characters, or at the very least, even if the character is not that exceptional, they've at least put an actor that will bring something to the part, even if it's kind of thin. That's honestly kind of the case with Goodman's character, with Toby Jones's character, with Bill Skarsgård's character. There isn't a lot there to them, but they are actors who bring something by their presence alone, so it kind of makes up for that a little bit. The action is very hard hitting, and that was the main thing that I remembered from this. The extended action scene in the stairwell and then into the apartment, that scene hurts. Like, these people are wailing on each other, and by the time they're done, there's this moment, and it's several seconds long, as both Charlize Theron and the last guy that she's dealing with, they're just staggering, trying to get back to their feet to try and finish this fight. And it's like almost 10 seconds of them just being like, just trying to be steady enough to throw another punch. And bringing across the exhaustion of a protracted fight, I think it does that really well. In addition to, some badass moments and some hard hitting hits and some fighting competency porn on the part of of Theron's character. And yeah, that's all good stuff. I was so ready for it to be over at minimum 20 minutes earlier than it was. I think the main issue is that, and this is not atypical for an espionage story, but it is an overly complicated, overly twisty story, and the way that it is told doesn't help because there's a framing device of Theron's character being asked questions about what happened that we're flashing back to the events of. And all right, let me put it this way. What this movie needed to realize was that its strongest aspect was the personalities and the action scenes, and that its convoluted, twisty betrayals on betrayals, who's really working for who plot, didn't benefit those things and also didn't benefit from those things. Well, it might have benefited from the cast, but like, if they wanted a plot this twisty, I would have taken a fair amount of the action scenes out. And that's also not what I wouldn't have done. I would have left the action scenes in and streamlined the hell out of the plot because you have so many people with varying interests. You have the Soviets, you have the UK, you have the CIA, there's the Soviets, there's MI6, there is the CIA, so you've got America in the mix. You have James McAvoy, who appears to more or less be working for himself and seems to be ready to stab everybody in the back. You have this French agent as well, and trying to figure out who's on whose side doing what and to what end. And it there keeps being reveals of oh, and this person betrayed you to this person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're working with that person. They just betrayed you in this instant, but they're also doing this thing. And it is too twisty for something that comes alive the most in its most simplistic scenes, which is beating the hell out of somebody or just the banter between some of the characters. The actual plot machinations are not helping the stuff that is actually good about it. And like I said, that big fight, that big showpiece fight happens, and then there's a half hour left in the movie, which is way, way too long. The other thing that is kind of a slog by the end is I like the music, and it's some pretty on the nose needle drops in this. But the thing is, they're so fun that I kind of go with it, except that by the end, when we get to the last couple, I'm just stop. We get to the last really obvious needle drop, and I'm just I'm so over it just because the things ground me down too much. And it's a shame because it just outstays its own welcome. You trim 20 to 30 minutes out of this thing, and you would have a absolutely phenomenal, tight, exciting, thrilling, and just fun piece of action Cold War nonsense, and it would be great. But it's trying to tell this convoluted story as well that I understand why they took more time, because to try and pick the knot of this plot, you need that time, except it's not really worth picking. The reveals aren't that interesting, and yeah. And as I said, watching it this time, I realized it's a lot more male-gazy than I remembered it. Between the fact that Charlize Theron's character is literally introduced naked in an ice bath, and then, when she hooks up with this French agent who's also a woman, that their scenes feel very male-gazy. And then when the French agent later gets killed, she gets killed while she's in her frickin' underwear. Yeah, that didn't help. But if the thing had a more propellant pace, which honestly it did up until the last half hour, I could be not completely forgiving, but at least more this nonsense kind of matches your energy a bit. I'll let it go. I won't defend it, but I'll let it go, kind of a thing. But yeah, this whole thing needed a hedge trimmer taken to the plot, and it could have been great. But for the action stuff, it's really good. It's really good, and the fight scenes are hard hitting, and it's honestly just impressive just how hard they let those hits land and how exhausted they let the characters get. It's an aspect you don't often see in these action scenes. Like this stuff is tiring, and it's really well executed. But yeah, then it just keeps going. And it keeps going. And again, it's not that the plot doesn't justify taking more time. It's just that the plot isn't interesting enough to be worth taking that time. So, yeah. But Atomic Blonde, parts that are good are real good. The overall package, meh. What are your thoughts on it? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help as well. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lafula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperol, Dave Hall, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twilord, Tracy Scrabbit, Pal Barabajoggle, Magdalena, Sir Didymus is my favorite. And to thank some supporters from the lower tiers, thank you to Wordmaker, Lucy Llewellyn, and Beginner's Mind Podcast. And if you want to hear me say your name as well, you can check out the rewards on the Patreon, and there's other stuff besides, and it'll help keep these absurd creatures fed.